Today I'm going to be talking about something very important to me, and very important to many other people. The full timeline, in my personal opinion, of Five Nights at Freddy's. Let's get into it. Now, I'm going to be explaining as I go along some of the theories I believe in. Anyway, this is just my personal opinion. You can disagree if you want, but if you're watching this, make sure to tell others to watch it. I'm sure they'll find it interesting if nothing else, even if they disagree with it. With all that out of the way, let me start the timeline. This is going to be a three-parter, 3 videos, because the FNAF timeline is huge, and it requires 3 parts to be dealt with properly. With all that out of the way, let's get started. So, while there are a lot of events and characters' birth dates that happened before any of the restaurants open, we're not going to be covering those. The earliest event of any relevance is the opening of the very first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner locations. Now, from FNAF 1, we hear Phone Guy in his phone call basically saying that they've been singing the same songs, the animatronics have been singing the same songs for 20 years. Now, as far as I'm concerned, FNAF 1 takes place in 1993, and this call specifically was recorded on November 1st, 1993. So as far as an exact date for when the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened up, I'd say October 29th, 1973 would be accurate. I also believe this is when Fredbear's Family Diner opened up, and here's why. I think Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was always the main location, while Fredbear's Family Diner was the secondary location. Why do I think that? Excuse me, I had to cover it up. Why do I think that Fredbear's Family Diner was the secondary location to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza? Well, it's called Fredbear's Family Diner. You could say it opened first in 1970, while Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened in 1973, but there isn't as much evidence for that, in my personal opinion, because it says these characters, which refers to Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and, I guess, Fredbear and Spring Bonnie, or Golden Freddy as he's called by FNAF 1. I believe that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was the main location. I believe the characters were conceptualized for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza first, and then they were given golden variants for Fredbear's Family Diner. Fredbear's Family Diner has 2 animatronics, in contrast to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza's 4, or even 5 if you consider the security puppet to be one of the main animatronics. Next, it took a lot, as we'll see later, it took a lot fewer incidents to get Fredbear's Family Diner to close down than it did for Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to close down. All of this leads me to say that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is the main location, and Fredbear's Family Diner is the secondary location, and there were a bunch of other really ancillary locations in addition to those main 2. Alright, so the initial opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner is in 1973. Something to know is that the 2 people who opened it were named William Afton and Henry Emily. They were co-chairmen of the board of directors of Fazbear Entertainment, and it is also around this time that they founded Fazbear Entertainment. Fazbear Entertainment is founded, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is opened, and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza's second sister location, Fredbear's Family Diner, open. All 3 of these events happened roughly around the same time. I'd say October 29th, 1973. Everything is going well, but there's some suspicious things. Foxy's hook is metal instead of the plastic that you'd think a pretend hook should be. There's children here. Not only that, the bite forces of Freddy and Fredbear are shockingly weird. In addition to this, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Fredbear, and Spring Bonnie are suits. Quick shout out to a few major people. Game Theory, even if he betrayed this theory later, and of course, Blackfoot Ferret. The jaw strength of some of these animatronics is on par with that of an alligator, and Foxy has a real metal hook. Not to mention the spring locks seem easily prone to fail for those who aren't as well instructed as the founders are. That is because William Afton has some extremely dark desires. William Afton is a serial killer in the making. He's planning to become one. He hasn't fully decided yet, but he's thinking about it. Now, what makes this worse is he has children of his own. Now, while he would never hurt them, he does want them to eventually join him in becoming serial killers. This will become important later on. Put that on hold and keep it in your head. So, everything is going well for more than 8 years. For more than 8 years, everything is fine, in spite of William's malicious intentions. But then, on January 4th, 1982, at Fredbear's Family Diner, while Henry is busy entertaining the children while wearing the Fredbear suit, William uses the mainspring bodysuit that is on stage with Fredbear to lure Henry's son, Sammy Emily, to the back room. The safe room, I mean. What is my evidence for this? In the Stasia 1 minigame, we see a kid in a green shirt go missing. I believe this child is Sammy Emily, and I believe that there are only 2 reliable accounts of who was first. This is why I don't believe the Bite of 83 was the inciting incident, and stuff like that. Or this is one of the reasons. There's plenty of story and mathematical reasons I don't, but I'll get into those at other times. The point is that Henry says, a wound first inflicted on me in FNAF 6. However, Chica says, I was the first, I have seen everything in Ultimate Custom Night. These two contradict each other, but they are both the only statements. As far as I'm concerned, you can believe what you want to believe, so long as we agree that it all starts back in, 1982. I just believe this because it starts things in January 1982 instead of June 1982. But that's my personal opinion. January 4th, 1982 instead of June 26th, 1982. Anyhow, Sammy is spring-locked in a spare suit. This spare suit is the suit that we see in FNAF 4 in the back room, in the safe room. It is the suit that William puts another employee into in an Easter egg, and it is also the suit that has the head that is seen in the FNAF 4 Night 4 minigame where Crying Child is banging on the door because he wants to get out. So those two are the spare spring bodysuit. That's the spare spring bodysuit, the main spare spring bodysuit, which is what Sammy Emily gets spring-locked in. Shortly afterwards, William Afton brutally murders Henry's daughter, Charlotte Emily, outside of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Sammy Emily becomes Shadow Bonnie, from what we can see later, and Charlie Emily becomes the puppet. As you can imagine, Henry is devastated by both of his children being murdered, because, there's some serious negative press that Fredbear's Family Diner and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza receive because of this, but it only weakens their revenue. The restaurants are still technically open. How long is it going to remain the case? Well, a while longer. Throughout the rest of 1982 and the early months of 1983, William monitors the puppet and the spare spring bodysuit. The spare spring bodysuit has a habit of darkening into a shadow-like shape. William realizes that the experiment he had done, because he has known about Remnant for some time now, and his malicious intentions had been for Remnant experiments that he suspected might work but had no real confirmation of. Now he has proof. Sammy Emily is now haunting the spare spring bodysuit, which will become known as Shadow Bonnie over time, and Charlie Emily is haunting the security puppet, now known just as the Puppet. With this in mind, William Afton plans his next murders. Something I want to make clear right now is I believe Michael Afton is the Bite victim. This will become relevant in a little amount of time. I believe the older brother is Dale Afton. I believe William Afton has 3 children. Dale Afton, the older brother, Michael Afton, the middle child and his youngest son, and Elizabeth Afton, his youngest child and his only daughter. So yes, I believe Michael Afton is the Bite victim. Moving on. On June 26th, 1983, William Afton lures 5 children named Susie, Jeremy, Fritz, Gabriel, and Cassidy into the safe room at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. For reasons I'll get into later, I believe this is the same location as we play as in FNAF 2. That is to say that the Pirate's Cove we see here, and this event is portrayed in Foxy Go-Go, will eventually become Kids Cove that we see in FNAF 2. The Kids Cove that we see in FNAF 2. William Afton murders all 5 of them, and Cassidy is killed last and most brutally as far as I'm concerned. She is slowly and painfully spring-locked and experimented on in the Fredbear suit The Fredbear and Spring Bonnie suits are at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza because they were being taken over from Fredbear's Family Diner for a special event, probably Cassidy's birthday. William used the Spring Bonnie suit that was normally on stage at Fredbear's to lure in the 5 children, and because of this, he brutally murdered them and stuffed them. Susie was stuffed into Chica and possessed Chica. Jeremy was stuffed into and possessed Bonnie. Fritz was stuffed into and possessed Foxy. Gabriel was stuffed into and possessed Freddy. And lastly, and most brutally of all, Cassidy was put in the suit alive and slowly and painfully spring-locked for the sake of the experiments, and became Fredbear/Golden Freddy. William Afton is doing this because he believes it is for the greater good. However, this doesn't excuse it at all. There's no pain in his life personally, and every bad thing that happens to him is his fault. Directly his fault. And you will see that because after this, the FNAF 4 minigames take place. I believe that since Michael Astor's the crying child, the thing he saw was the various incidents, not actually happening, but the aftermath. He knows someone at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner has killed his friends, but he doesn't know who. All he knows is that there's something very foul going on, and the animatronics begin to move around at night and attack guards, with little success at this point. A few days later, in the last of the FNAF 4 minigames, Dale Afton and his 3 friends throw Michael Afton's head into Fredbear's mouth on July 1st, 1983. This is the bite of 83 as Fredbear crunches down on Michael's head. Michael is rushed to the hospital, and from July 2nd through July 9th, he is forced to survive horrifying nightmares. Eventually, due to the help of Sammy, Charlie, and Cassidy, he is able to survive, make a full recovery, and return home. I believe it is at this point, around fall 1983, when 2 more events happen. Midnight Motorist, and William Afton framing the man in the Foxy Spring suit and Foxy Go-Go. If you notice in Midnight Motorist, whoever this person is clearly connected to the Aftons. The character on the couch is very likely Foxy Bully Afton, or as I'm calling him, Dale Afton, and the one in the room, as it's a male, can only really be Michael Afton. I believe the orange character in Midnight Motorist is none other than Mrs. Afton, William's wife. For the sake of simplicity, I'll be calling her Clara Afton, although I believe her actual first name is Clara Schmidt. Now, Clara is not outright abusive, but she is an alcoholic. She literally drives at 240 miles per hour, or at least 200 miles per hour, and she is neglectful. Now, William loves his children, and he loves them so much that he wants them to take part in his murders. He thinks his murders are all good fun, and they're very enlightening, and they're very nice and stuff. Again, William Afton is not delusional. He knows what he's doing is terrible, but he thinks it's a very good thing for the one doing it. Himself, in this case. And in the future, he helps his children. Furious at his wife for letting the bite happen because he was busy, and she was supposed to be watching the kids, and if she had been, Michael wouldn't have gotten bitten, William divorces Clara. After this, William is able to frame a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza employee who was wearing a spare Foxy suit for the missing children incident, and let me explain why. In the Foxy Go-Go minigame, we see William Afton in the background, but we also see a man in a Foxy suit. Now, let's go on. Now, big credit to Blackfoot Ferret for uncovering this. I don't think Scott planned FNAF out from FNAF 1, but in FNAF 4, Spring Bonnie is not in Fredbear and Friends. I believe this is a very intentional clue in as to what he did. I believe that since Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are also Springlock suits, and they also have spares, just like how Fredbear and Spring Bonnie have spares, except they don't have main spares that look discernibly different. The main spare at Fredbear's Family Diner was the Spring Bonnie, which looked different enough to be considered a different suit. I believe that William was able to frame the man in the Foxy Springlock suit for the missing children's incident, because you see him walking in, and the newspaper in FNAF 1 says that they were using a cartoon mascot, not a company mascot, because that's what Spring Bonnie is, a cartoon mascot, and Spring Bonnie does not appear in Fredbear and Friends. I believe this Fredbear and Friends detail in FNAF 4 was very intentionally put in by Scott to explain how William was able to get off scot-free, because someone else was caught and convicted, but they were wrongfully caught and convicted. And I believe that was a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza employee who was wearing the Foxy suit, and that's who we play as in Foxy Go-Go. On December 23rd, 1983, both Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner closed their doors. As a result of this, both Henry and William begin working on new animatronics. I believe it is at this point, from 1984 to 1986, where William Afton creates the Mimic. Now, I'll get into what I think the Mimic is later and all that stuff, but before that, I should mention that Henry makes the toy animatronics. Now, Henry is forced to go it alone, and I believe this is a clue in. The toys are not all that well constructed. It's possible that Henry was busy grieving, and perhaps that's why the toys are so poorly constructed. He was doing the bare minimum, although most of the aspects of the toy animatronics were very, very poorly constructed. Their security systems were not. He wanted to make sure that nothing like what had happened to his children, or in the case of the missing children's incident, ever happened again. And so he put in hardcore security systems. But Henry, like the rest of the world, had no idea that the real killer was in plain sight in the form of William Afton, and his plans got more and more murderous as he made the designs for the Funtime animatronics, programming him with built-in knowledge of the more than decades prior events that had gone on since 1973 of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner, as well as Fazbear Entertainment in general. And so, William was able to create AI. Souls of their own. These were separate souls, though. These weren't human souls. These were beings with souls, every bit as non-physical and indestructible as humans. And they were robots. They didn't need to be possessed. This was a huge breakthrough. But William knew he had to keep it secret, and so he did. Circus Baby didn't have this, but I believe Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora did. Bonbon as well. Now, it was time to open Circus Baby's Pizza World on January 5th, 1987. And that's where we're going to end the first part of the timeline, because 1987 is a very big year, and a lot happens in it. So, yeah, I will see you all in part 2. Thank you all for watching. There are infinite timelines, time never ends, and resurrection is inevitable. And I will see you all in part 2 of the full FNAF timeline, in my personal opinion. Hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the full FNAF timeline, in my personal opinion. Let's pick up where we left off, at Circus Baby's Pizza World. Where we last left off, William Afton had made 4 new murderous animatronics. Circus Baby, Funtime Freddy, Funtime Foxy, and Ballora. And that leads us to now. So, on January 5th, that's my estimation, 1987, Circus Baby's Pizza World opens. Now, for some reason, William had brought his daughter there. We can't speculate why. Maybe Dale was busy with something and there was no one to babysit. Michael was busy. Dale and Michael were busy, so he had to take her to work or leave her at home. But, for some reason, she gets close to Circus Baby, even though he told her not to. And we see this in some audio clips from Sister Location. And as a result, she is devoured by Circus Baby. Now, William Afton is not pleased by this. In fact, it sends him on a downward spiral. You see, William Afton, in addition to all of his other bad things, is a hypocrite. It's fine if other people's children go kablooey, but not his children. This, of course, Elizabeth didn't deserve this, but it is kind of karmic for William. As he's done this to so many other people and now he's suffering it. This is why I prefer this interpretation over will grief, the theory that the bite of 83 was the cause of everything. Anyway, as you can imagine, William is very, very devastated by this. And so, Circus Baby's Pizza World closes down. Henry, in the meantime, is left to continue working on the still budding, but not quite ready to open yet, new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is in the same building as which the missing children's incident happened, and is also the same building which Charlie was murdered outside of. This, of course, leads to, eventually, later in the year, after William Afton has put the Funtime animatronics down in Circus Baby's Entertainment Rentals. Once that's happened, on September 7th, 1987, the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opens up. Now, I want to explain the summer job thing quickly, what I call the summer paradox. As far as I'm concerned, Phone Guy recorded this on September 7th, 1987, and this tape was just replayed for the first night for every guard, because even though it said summer job, and this was in September, so it was the end of summer, it was replayed because that would require more effort, and Fazbear Entertainment doesn't want to go through that effort. The point is, 8 weeks later, on November 2nd, 1987, William Afton comes in and brutally, and I do mean brutally, murders 6 children in what is known as the Save Them Massacre. What's the evidence that William did this? Well, obviously we see him here. What's the evidence that he used the Spring Bonnie suit instead of the Fredbear suit? Well, we see Golden Freddy teleporting around during Save Them. That tells us that William wasn't using it. So, William gets in the Spring Bonnie suit, runs as fast as he can, and murders 6 children. These children possess Toy Freddy, Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica, Mangle, Balloon Boy, and JJ. A little less than a week later, William leaves his shift, and the Freddy mask is implemented for the next guard, Jeremy Fitzgerald. But before we get to that, we need to pivot over, because at the same time as William is doing his shift after having committed the Save Them Massacre, Michael has been sent underground by William to go rescue Elizabeth. The events of Sister Location play out, and eventually Circus Baby, Ballora, Funtime Freddy, and Funtime Foxy merge into Ennard. They scoop out Michael's insides and go into him. Michael is able to survive, once again, probably due to the interference of his friends and his own strong will. He has to know what's going on, what's happening, who's responsible for all of this pain and suffering that his friends and family have had to endure. Why were the jaws so tight on Fredbear? Why was this scooper here at all? What is going on? Why did Elizabeth go missing? All these questions will be answered shortly, because throughout the events of FNAF 2, Michael is beginning to decay. An investigation begins, and, well, this investigation ultimately causes the restaurant to begin shutting down. And then, the truth comes out. William Afton is the killer of 13 children directly, and is the reason why the animatronics have all these deadly features. William immediately flees, as he's now a wanted man and has to go on the lam. With William's true colors revealed, the new and improved Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals shutters its doors, and the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is not far behind. Then, on Saturday, November 14th, 1987, disaster strikes. Jeremy Fitzgerald has his head bitten by one of the toy animatronics. I personally think Mangle, so we'll say Mangle, has his head bitten by Mangle, tearing out his frontal lobe in the bite of 87. By the time Michael throws up Ennard, all of this is on the news. As well as this, I'm pretty sure the guy who wore the Foxy spring suit was probably let out of prison, because now it's known that William was guilty of it instead of him. So he probably goes off and does his own thing. Michael is furious to find out that all of this is his father's fault. He could almost probably forgive the bite and even the scooping. But Elizabeth has been devoured. God knows what's happened to Dale. And most importantly of all of his friends were personally, brutally murdered by William Afton, all 7 of them, not to mention 6 more children. Michael swears to put his father down and bring an end to his reign of terror, and he begins his crusade against his father by going to the FNAF 2 location on its last couple of days of being open as both the day shift and the night shift guard under the alias Fritz Smith. He is quickly found out to be Michael Afton, and also that he is only 17 years and 4.5 months old. The new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closes down at the very beginning of Monday, November 16th, 1987. As Phone Guy said in the phone call, they were going to try and contact the original restaurant owner, or Henry in this case. They need to try one more Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Henry is cooperative at first, but eventually he attacks Foxy and stops. This leads to Foxy not being fully refurbished, and the Fazbear Entertainment budget is now in horribly low amounts. So they're forced to just sort of bear the fact that Foxy is now no longer able to do anything. As a result of the new pizzeria, in addition to all the controversies, does very, very poorly with customers. This pizzeria opens in 1988. Dale is off doing something. 1988, I also think, is when Fun with Balloon Boy takes place. I think it could be the Saved spirits reaching on for the spirit world, trying to motivate Michael. Who knows? Don't really have much to say about it. I also believe the MCI was mistaken for the Springlock failures by Phone Guy back in 1983, but moving on from that, years go by, and the FNAF 1 location, which was once Fredbear's Family Diner and has now been Freddy Fazbear's Pizza since 1988, begins to fail. Really fail. Fail horribly. Phone Guy, among other guards, serves there, and eventually, on November 4th, 1993, he is attacked. Although I don't think he's killed, but he is attacked by the animatronics. Specifically, well, all of them, but the one that deals the major blow is Golden Freddy, possessed by Cassidy. Michael, hearing about this and also seeing a new job offering, goes to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So, there he finds out the truth. The animatronics say, "It's me," which is to say that they have mistaken him for William. This misunderstanding is cleared up. Michael rescues Phone Guy, and the location shutters its doors on November 15th, 1993. This is the events of FNAF 1. On that day, in the early hours, William Afton arrives. He dismantles the animatronics. And just when it seems like he's about to win, he's cornered by the spirits, and he is forced to jump into the Spring Bonnie suit. But he laughs, and that laughing is his undoing. The spring locks go off, and not only is his body pulverized, the entire innards of the suit, which have begun to decay, as a result of having been in 100% disuse for roughly 6 years at this point, going to completely fall apart. Fazbear Entertainment can no longer survive in its current state. Without their most loyal employee in the form of Phone Guy, and with one founder disgraced and now killed in the Spring Bonnie suit, and the other founder thoroughly tired of it. As Henry and Phone Guy both depart, the safe room is boarded up by Henry and Michael, and William is left to rot. Meanwhile, the happiest day happens. Susie, Gabriel, Jeremy, and Fritz finally are free. They ascend. Meanwhile, Sammy, Charlie, and Cassidy stay behind to ensure William Afton does not get back up. Little do they know that this is merely the origins. We have merely covered the origin story of the present-day FNAF. For as William Afton himself says, for as William Afton has said, he always comes back, and come back he will. And so, decades pass, but he lives. So, let me explain some details, because this is the end of part 2, but I feel like now would be a very good time to explain some decisions and explain why I did certain things the way I did. So, more or less, yes, I am under the belief that Happiest Day happens in 1993. That's the most controversial part of my timeline, but where's the evidence? We don't see the spirits that haunted Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy appear any later than that. And I think that's a sign that they've moved on. And, well, more or less, I want to quickly go through and clarify some stuff. Let me explain why I think the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is the same place where the missing children's incident and Charlie's murder happened. We see this cove right here, and I think there's only two main locations, that one and Fredbear's Family Diner. Let me explain why I think it's FNAF 1. We see an Easter egg in Help Wanted, which shows Spring Bonnie on the stage. So I believe FNAF 2 has always been Freddy's, and FNAF 1 was always Fredbear's until 1988, when the FNAF 2 location was left to rot, and I believe eventually became the FNAF 6 location. So that leads us to now. Why do I think Phone Guy survives? It's just a neat headcanon. I think Henry and Michael personally boarded up the safe room, and any other beliefs on my part? Let me think. I believe Dale's doing his own thing. At some point during all of this chaos is when Ennard splits up into what will become Scrap Baby and what will become Molten Freddy. When his decades pass, I think the logbooks happen in the intervening decades, but eventually it becomes crystal clear that William is not nearly as dead as anyone hoped. And that's about to become a recurring trend, because he always comes back. Remember, there are infinite timelines, time never ends, and resurrection is inevitable. I hope you have all enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for part 3, which is coming out soon, and I will see you all in part 3 of my full FNAF timeline. Welcome to part 3 of my full FNAF timeline. Again, my personal opinion. Let's get right into it. The year is 2023. The date is January 2nd, I think. Yeah, around January 2nd. Michael comes to work at a place called Fazbear's Fright. There he is told by a character who we'll be calling Phone Dude that they're going to track down a lead. Now, Fazbear's Fright is a rebuilt version of FNAF 1, which is a rebuilt version of Fredbear's Family Diner. I explained all that in the previous videos. Getting into it further, on night 2, January 3rd, 2023, William Afton is let out as Springtrap now. He's now Springtrap. So, Michael spends 5 nights 2 through 6, contending with his father. Many say Happiest Day happens here. I think it happens in 1993. I've already explained that in the previous video. We don't see the spirits inhabiting Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, or Foxy show up again, so I think they're chilling out in the spirit world until true resurrection inevitably happens, because there are infinite timelines, time never ends, and resurrection is inevitable. And I think that applies to real life as well, obviously. I know that for certain, so anyway, getting into it further, we have Michael versus Springtrap. Michael burns down Fazbear's Fright to try and kill William. Surprise, surprise, it fails. William has survived. Not only has he survived, he's become even cooler looking in the form of Scraptrap. Scraptrap is actually really good, and you guys are just mean to it. Now, this leads us to FNAF 6, because the puppet is then trapped in Lefty, which was created by Henry because he needed her to go to the location. Fredbear's Family Diner, which became the FNAF 1 location, which became Fazbear's Fright, has burned down. So, this leads us to FNAF 6, as I said before. With Puppet now in Lefty, Springtrap now is Scraptrap, and Ennard now is Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy, Henry opens up a new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and for 6 days and nights, events happen, and for 6 days, some stuff happens. Michael salvages salvages Molten Freddy, Scrap Baby, and Lefty. Eventually, this leads us to day 6, Saturday, November 25th, 2023. Henry burns the FNAF 6 location, which is also the FNAF 2 location, which is also the Unwithered location where the missing children incident happened, which is also where the Take Cake to the Children stuff happened, where Charlie was killed. The location burns to the ground, and Sammy and Cassidy come in to take William Afton to an artificial hell known as Ultimate Custom Night. They torture him there for quite some time until Old Man Consequences gets them to see reason. And as a result, they let William Afton go to the real hell at our resurrection, where he'll be properly punished and imprisoned, and he'll do his time for his horrible, ghastly crimes. You think that would be the end of it, but no, there's more. Not too much more, but there's more. Around January 6th, 2025, William Afton escapes hell due to his oldest child, and his only remaining one that is not the spirit world until resurrection, Dale Afton. Now, Dale is doing this because, much like Elizabeth, he wants, their father's love and stuff. Michael is a defector from Decadence, that sort of stuff. His father would have loved him, but that sort of stuff. I've already explained it. Not going to explain it anymore. William is able to brainwash a security guard named Vanessa and turns her into Vanny. This is FNAF Your Help Wanted. Also, after this, we've got FNAF AR Special Delivery. A few years pass, and in 2029, Fazbear Entertainment opens Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. There, a homeless orphan named Gregory and an animatronic with an AI of its own soul and stuff, Glamrock Freddy must figure out what ghastly crimes are going on. They dodge Vanny and the other animatronics until eventually they are able to free Vanny from William Afton's influence, as he has taken the form of the Glitch Trap virus. They then find William Afton and face him down. An AI known as the Blob dies time for Gregory, Glamrock Freddy, and Vanessa to escape. As a result, William Afton knocks the Blob out of commission indefinitely. Then he finds his old minion, the Mimic, and gets him to do the dirty work. William Afton flees to the depths of space, where no one will be able to find him, and has the Mimic do all the dirty work. As a result of this, Cassie must face down the Mimic in the Ruin DLC, and she does. But all the way through this DLC, Gregory, Glamrock Freddy, Vanessa, Cassie, and Roxy have help from an unknown benefactor. This unknown benefactor is a black and purple rabbit with some white outlines. It could just be an AI, just a robot. Of course, it has his own soul and stuff. It just wants to stop William Afton's evil stuff. Or it could be Sammy, appearing as an apparition to guide those in the next struggle against William. Because, and this is what I'm bringing it to, as Optimus Prime said in Robots in Disguise 2015, if he survives, in this case William, we will always be there to stop his schemes, wherever they may appear. It's not necessarily that quote, but I think that's a very good quote for FNAF. And thus there will always be evil, and I'll always, there are infinite timelines, time never ends, and resurrection is inevitable. And that means both good and evil can never truly die. And I believe that is the ultimate moral of FNAF. Slow and steady wins the race. When it's inevitable and time never ends, you can afford to be slow and steady. And with that, that is the full moral of FNAF. And with that, we have reached the latest point in the timeline thus far, 2029. So, to quickly recap, we have the first opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and Fredbear's Family Diner in 1973. William kills Henry's two children, Sammy and Charlie, in 1982. William kills 5 more children named Susie, Jeremy, Fritz, Gabriel, and Cassidy in 1983. a little bit after this, later in 1983, around July 1st, Michael, the crying child, and William's middle child and youngest son, has his head bitten by Fredbear because of a prank from his older brother, Dale Afton. Michael spends some time in the hospital, he recovers, William divorces his wife, the man in the foxy suit who William framed for the missing children's incident is arrested, Freddy's and Fredbear's clothes. Getting into 1984 through 1986, William builds the fun times, Henry builds the toys. Released in 1987, William's daughter Elizabeth gets killed on January 5th. September 7th, the new Freddy Fazbear's opens up. November 2nd, William Afton goes on a killing spree. At the same time, and a few days after this, Michael goes to the location, gets scooped by Ennard, and vomits Ennard out, and then finds out about William's crimes right around the time FNAF 2 ends, and he plays as Fritz Smith. Then in 1988, the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, built over Fredbear's Family Diner, opens because the one in FNAF 2 had closed. Michael has some fun with Balloon Boy related nightmares, as this was the only FNAF 4 nightmares that would need to happen after FNAF 2 at the earliest. Yes. Henry gives up on Fazbear Entertainment, and then a few years later, Phone Guy gets attacked. Michael Afton goes undercover as Mike Schmidt in order to find out what happened to Phone Guy and also see if he can contact his friends. Makes contact with his friends, breaks Phone Guy out. Both Henry and Phone Guy desert Fazbear Entertainment because of their horrible crimes. And that eventually leads to the restaurant closing down after FNAF 1 on November 15th, 1993. William disassembles the animatronics, gets chased into the spring bodysuit by the spirits, but the suit's insides are all creaky even though the outside looks fine. The suit malfunctions, destroying both its innards and his body, so both his body and the inner spring locks of the suit are destroyed in the spring lock failure. In turn, he's boarded up by Henry and Michael. This Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is left to rot from 1994 to 2022. This is probably somewhere in there is where the logbook happens, and Michael talks with Sammy, Charlie, and Cassidy, because Susie, Jeremy, Fritz, and Gabriel have already all gone to the spirit world due to Happiest Day, which I believe happens right afterwards on November 15th, 1993. On January 2nd, 2023, Fazbear's Fright opens up. Is opened up by Phone Dude and probably some others. Michael works there for 6 nights, 5 of which, nights 2 through 6, he is forced to contend with his father, who has become Springtrap. He burns the location down, but Springtrap just becomes Scraptrap. Scrap Baby, because Ennard had split into Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. So basically, Scrap Trap, Scrap Baby, Molten Freddy, and Lefty go to the FNAF 6 location. 6 days later, the location burns down. Sammy and Cassidy put William in Ultimate Custom Night. Old Man Consequences gets them to come to their senses. They leave William to go to the real hell until resurrection happens, because remember, their infinite timelines, time never ends, and resurrection is inevitable. But William escapes. The Pizza Flex opens up. William Afton escapes to space. The Mimic is hired by William, and that's where it goes, because there's always fighting. There are infinite timelines, time never ends, and resurrection is inevitable.